Moving on to the next panel discussion of the day, Telcos to TechCos. Quite an interesting title, I must say, the growth agenda. The experts here will deliberate on the plausible business-first playbook for platform-driven growth, new revenue models, and repeatable enterprise solutions that telcos can explore. May I now invite our panelists for this panel on stage, please. Our first panelist, Mr. Salil Khanna, National Head Customer Operations Enterprise Business Reliance Jio. Can we have a round of applause for Salil, please? Our next panelist, Mr. Sukhjit Singh, CTO and Director Technical AT&T Asia Pacific. Is Mr. Sukhjit here? Yeah, please, can we have a round of applause for Mr. Sukhjit, please? Our third panelist, Ms. Rakhee A. Chachra, Global Research Leader, TME, Institute of Business Value, IBM. A round of applause for Rakhee, please. And to moderate the session, we have Mr. Jaideep Ghosh, Consultant and former partner, KPMG, to take the panel discussion ahead. Thank you so much, panelists, and over to you, Jaideep.
Members. The topic for this is, as you can see, Telcos to TechCos, the growth agenda. Basically discussing the shift or the aspiring shift of telecom operators or telcos to a tech company model and how it drives the growth agenda and value. So just some initial words and then we'll go straight to my very esteemed and knowledgeable panel members. Essentially, telecom operators, telcos are historically known as reliable partners for connectivity provision at a scale, especially in such large countries like ours. However, that growth which had to be captured by adding scale, as in more locations, more coverage, more customers to drive the growth is currently in a more of a decline phase, because as we are seeing in India and elsewhere, the adding customer business is kind of saturated because there's only so much that can be added, and hence connectivity has become just the starting point and not the only solution that customers, both retail and enterprise, are looking for. So what's the transition we are talking about? So the question is more around how then a telco can monetize the network, the data, and more importantly, the customer relationship and trust built over so many years to drive the next stage of growth. That is essentially the theme of this particular panel. We are already seeing that happening, this transition from telco to techco all over the world, including very much in India. Some international examples, if I can start with AT&T, and we have Sukhjit here from AT&T Asia Pacific, but AT&T worldwide, at least in the US, has repositioned this enterprise business to focus on managed services, edge, and cybersecurity. Similarly, in the European Union, in Telefonica, who's primarily from Spain but operates in many countries, they have created a venture, Telefonica Tech, which again focuses on IoT and big data and security, etc. Closer home in Asia, we have in Singtel from Singapore, which has is very deep into regional data centers, and it's got a not such a new venture, Nexera, which has got so many, so much infrastructure they have built more for Asia Pacific and Indonesia and Malaysia, those kind of large ASEAN countries. And Nexera is not new, it was set up probably 30 years ago, but in 2023, given what's happening all around us, a private equity firm, major KKR, took a stake to drive the business around the infrastructure, digital infrastructure. Incidentally, that's the same time, September 2023, when in India we had the partnership between Jio and NVIDIA to build AI for India in India, and that's a major initiative that's going on, and sooner than later we should see some announcements there. Essentially, I'll not go on with more examples. We'll hear from my co-panelists here. So looks like the enterprise customers are increasingly focused on buying actually outcomes, business outcomes, and not so much as point solutions or bandwidth or anything specific. And to deliver that, it's not prudent to deliver it, singularly from the perspective of the telecom companies. So there is need for partnership, and we have seen those partnerships happening at a global scale and very much in India. So I'll stop here. I'll start by, let me start with a common question that when we, for everybody to understand in simple words, when we talk about telco to techco transition, so what does it exactly mean in terms of from the service provider's perspective, from the buyer's perspective, what kind of product solutions we're talking about? Maybe I'll start with you, Rakhee.
Thanks so much, and it's a pleasure to be here as part of this discussion organized by Voice and Data. So to better frame the response, I think it's important to look at this shift from both perspectives. So what I'm going to share right now is actually grounded in research that we've done in collaboration with GSMA, where we've actually gone out and studied what are the SME expectations and their experiences when they're looking at digital adoption, operation complexity and risk on one side, versus how CSPs are catering to this segment in terms of their positioning, packaging, design, globally for this segment. So having said that, to answer your question, in my opinion, the shift is basically moving from selling point solutions to owning the outcomes at scale. Now, what that means is that when we look at the research, it shows us a very interesting fact that the SMEs today are actually, over the last 2-3 years, have moved their expectations markedly. But in comparison, when you look at how CSPs are responding to them, they seem to be lagging behind in terms of business models. And I kind of state that with some data points. When we did our research and we asked our CSPs what is it that they see as potential growth areas for the SMEs, they still believe that 70 to 80% of their growth for SMEs will come from the typical fixed line mobility and connectivity services. And that's where I see that there's a slight disconnect between how we are structured operationally versus what the expectation and the changing buying behavior of the enterprises is. The next area that you talked about was technology, right? If I look at what's been happening for the last couple of years, the focus is a lot on AI and automation. And it's specifically on how you can implement AI and automation. And the focus now is, say, how do you use network intelligence and connect it to service delivery? So basically, being able to link provisioning, performance, security, incident reports all in one operational loop. And why is that important? Because at the other end, SMEs are looking at expecting to have access to this information in terms of through customer-facing interfaces like dashboards and APIs. And I know the previous panel talked about that, the visibility of or access to all this information. So that's kind of table stakes for them. From a buyer perspective, I think one big change that we see is that enterprises have no patience for fragmentation or fragmented solutions. Like everybody else in the world, they're also on this AI adoption journey, and they want to go faster than the others. And they want to spend and invest their time on system solutions that kind of automatically work together. So they don't want to spend time on understanding how cloud works with connectivity, with security, and so on and so forth. And in their head, they believe all of this should work together seamlessly. So that's a given for them. So if you pick up on that perspective, what they're looking for is someone who will take end-to-end accountability and ownership for outcomes. So I think that's where I see the shift, essentially.
Same question to you, Sukhjit. what is exactly meant by, in simple terms, telco to techco transition? Yeah.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks, Cyber Media, for inviting me and having me here, and Jaideep, you as well. I think the last panel, what we have been discussing basically, pretty much aligns with this discussion. And when we are talking about telco to techco, I would say that telecom companies have been a tech companies already. So it's basically, we have been always dealing with intense technology all the time, and which is sort of very innovative in the way. But in terms of what offering has gone in the market, pretty much was focused onto the connectivity earlier. When we talk about the next generation of the telcos, it's something which is basically, as in the previous discussion also, we have been talking how the monetization happens, and that as such it is, we are able to successfully monetize the network intelligence. And while we say intelligence, I will come back to this again, which is aligned with the customer business outcomes, and as Amit in the previous discussion talked about it, and which is also focusing on the outcome to the customer experience and can be offered to the customers, which is consumed in a more of a digital, consumption model, API driven, or some ways that it can integrate with the customer procurement environment easily. That is something which basically essentially building overall platform which is capable of providing the relevant intelligence and aligning with the outcome of the companies and offering in a digital interface. So that's basically is sort of at the very high level. Coming to business perspective, I would say that the ecosystem is very important. And when I say ecosystem, I think the three key part of the ecosystem itself is, one is the hyperscalers, right? So that's something which brings the scale and the speed of different deployments in the compute as well. And then telcos, they bring the reliable connectivity and the trust and reach. That is something which is a critical part. The third one is the SIs. SIs bring the vertical expertise, which is something which is very critical. And fortunately, in my career, I have been part of SI also with IBM, and I'm ex-IBM. And from 17 years, I'm with AT&T, so pretty much I can understand the both side of stories. And if we put all the expertise of these three, key ecosystem partners, there are others as well, but these are three very critical ones. Putting together, we can really make a platform which is relevant for the companies, which can deliver the real business outcome aligned offerings, right? When we come to the monetization, I think the revenue sharing is a critical part. It's a very tricky one. It's always evolving. It will keep on evolve all the time, but that's a critical part of it. So in nutshell, on the ecosystem part, it's not something telcos should be controlling the ecosystem, but orchestrating that ecosystem. That is a key, and which leads to the direction to take it to the next phase. Technology perspective, I think we talked about quite a lot on AI, and we will continue to. We have been building the intelligent network without AI some ways in the past, as well as now we have AI technology. Fortunately with telcos, what we have is we have a lot of data, which is really going to help AI to be sort of trained. The challenge is that data is overwhelmed by network statistics and network related aspects. It's something needs a little more to be aligned with the business outcome of the companies, of the customers. That data needs to integrate. When we put both type of the data all together, it's something which is, as I said, the network data is overwhelming than the other data in terms of which is showing the expectation of the customer. And then when we have the AI, which is basically trained onto that, and accordingly we align it, that will be giving a lot of, altogether a more intelligent and relevant intelligence for the customers. That's something which is going to be a key. It's a ongoing challenge which sort of, which be evolving. In terms of the buyer's perspective, buyers are always very smart. They have the clear expectation in terms of the timelines. Should be shorter to deploy, shorter to integrate, easier to sort of, consume. They want that, and that is, by the way, it's something which is very realistic now, and we can see that it's happening rapidly, sort of aligning with the telco platforms wherein they can consume it more rapidly. So that's something which, some of the aspects which I thought might be,
Thank you so much. You've covered main points like the need for partnering and also owning the outcomes, which is also similar to what Rakhee said and I also said. Salil, over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jaideep and Voice and Data for inviting me over. I think it's a very important topic that we have picked up today, from telco to techco. I'm just, it makes me feel happy that we never called ourselves a telco. From the day one, when Jio Enterprise business was born 6-7 years ago, we were very clear that we are not a telco, or we will not be a telco, but we are calling ourselves a digital service provider. So we will be delivering digital services to our enterprise customers. And today the new name is TechCo, but I think the overall sentiment is the same, that as a telco you can do only so much for an enterprise customer. It is largely creating a infrastructure or a network layer, but that infrastructure and network layer doesn't deliver any business outcome to the enterprise customers unless until it is coupled with system integration capabilities, certain other cloud comes in, applications, processes come in. Only then some business outcome comes. Now Jio led India to a digital revolution, and now we are confident that we will lead India into an AI revolution. 5G came into being, AI came into being, and now is the time where every techco, it could be a telco, it could be a SI, it could be any other new age startup, who can go and walk up to any enterprise customer and say, hey, I can completely transform the business processes that you are running. Your business processes could be your store to shelf process, or your hire to retire process in HR, or your farm to fork process for supply chain, or a plant to port process. So you have to pick up the underlying processes that every enterprise customer is running, and then you see that with the availability of a 5G network, the power of a 5G network, and availability of machine learning and AI tools, how do you completely revamp the business processes for any enterprise customer, which gives them a better outcome. Better outcome in terms of either their revenue market share increases, they open up some new revenue streams, their cost efficiencies come in, the wastage goes down, thefts go down, or the employee experience or customer experience goes up. So these are the 4 or 5 matrices in which, when we go and talk to any enterprise customers, we try to pick up these themes, that I'm not here to sell you a connectivity or a fat pipe or a managed services or a managed network. I think I'm here to deliver some value to you, and some value to you in the business processes that you run. You could be a bank, you could be an IT company, you could be a GCC, you could be a retail chain, you could be a healthcare company, etc., etc. So I think that's the shift that we always, knew that shift is going to happen, and we are quite ahead in that journey. That we are not offering only telco services, but we are offering certain techco services, which are digital services, which are aimed at business transformation, which are aimed at better business outcomes. So this is the trend, Jaideep, that now I'm seeing everywhere, that race is to become who becomes a better techco for your enterprise customers, who aligns themselves with the business objective outcomes of your enterprise customers, and how do you bring those gains to them and become a more valuable partner.
Thank you. I think you've articulated the value proposition very well, saying that for enterprise customers, we will take certain business processes and transform and improve the entire process, and not only provide some point solution like connectivity or some such thing. So let me take that forward with you, Salil. How has how has your go-to market changed in this telco to techco thing for enterprise customers? Do you have your own sales team still doing, or is it partner-led, or is it joint go-to-market?
See, in Jio, we see enterprise business right from the largest of the companies, maybe Fortune 500 companies or India's top 5,000 companies, to the long tail of SMBs and micros and startups. We see the entire enterprise segment in its full spectrum. And we don't have a one-size-fits-all strategy. We have a direct sales account management model for the top companies. We have, which is further, broken down into industry vertical specialized groups. And then we have, for a mid-market, we have, again, a direct account management model, but it's more geography-driven or a region-driven. And then for the long tail, we have, partners coming in. But now, as we go from TechCo to Telco, there is a merit in bringing a partner-led sales motion even at the top end of the enterprise customers. Because when you are going to sell solutions which are relying heavily on a 5G as well as AI, as well as cloud, so you need that kind of a ecosystem to kick in. So all three, but in varying degrees, looking at the value of the customer.
Very clear answer. I think I understood it very well. So what are customers actually buying? Let me come to Rakhee. I'll package two small questions into one. What are enterprise customers actually buying from where you stand in global research perspective in terms of what kind of solutions? And part B, related, is which verticals, because Salil said for top Fortune 500 or larger organizations, they have a vertical focus team also. And which verticals, in terms of industry verticals, have shown more potential to buy this kind of end-to-end solutions, which are led or at least provided by a, if I may say, erstwhile telecom operator along with other partners. So two questions: what is being bought and who is buying?
Thank you. So very interesting. So my response is enterprises are buying operational confidence. Now, what does that mean? What we found is that enterprises are willing to pay for this peace of mind that their digital operations will run reliably, securely, and without them having to do day-to-day management and maintenance. So what their expectation is that they don't want to get involved in the day-to-day, right? And if I was to quantify this, they are saying that they will pay up to 34% for turnkey bundled offering. Not because it's giving them more features, but primarily because it is less headache, less manual work for them, and there is a single point of accountability. Leading up to what Jio has been doing, right? They are basically working on the partnership and being that one point of accountability. So that's the expectation, and that is what they want to buy. With respect to your other question on where is this happening? Who's buying, right? Now, normally what happens is when enterprises are buying services, it's based on their operational needs. And normally CSPs, and I think Gio just talked about it, the way they segment it is normally based on size. Our research says that it's basically driven by demand. So the willingness to pay is driven by operational efficiency, security, reliability. What that translates into is that you could be a small financial firm and you might be the most demanding customer for your telco because you have very stringent requirements as compared to a larger enterprise whose business focus is not that much digitally aligned. So I believe verticalization is important. The companies that have dependencies on digital solutions are the ones which are actually doing more and asking for more. And you could classify them, they could be in finance, they could be in retail. It depends on the type of business that you're doing and not essentially the size of your organization. It's what is your business intent that drives your needs. And that's what we've seen.
Finance, retail are the, maybe healthcare also to some extent?
Finance definitely leads, and then you have digital solutions. Retail is there. Healthcare is quite low in that value chain. Manufacturing also comes up. Yeah.
Sukhjit ji, from your Asia Pacific level perspective, and the buyers, taking it forward from what Rakhee is saying, the buyers, do they expect too much or are they realistic? And what are the bottlenecks that, again, I'll package two questions into one. And what are the bottlenecks to meet from your perspective or from you and your SI partners and cloud providers, etc.? What are the bottlenecks that prevent you from meeting those expectations? If you could share with all of us here, please.
Yeah, certainly. So I think from the buyer's perspective, excuse me, their expectations are always realistic, I would say, because they are coming from their business perspective. When they are coming and asking for what they really needed, those expectations which sort of we have seen in the market. That's something which is working well. Is also the way the robust connectivity, the mission critical connectivity, which is important for all the companies, is already there. Now moving them to from recent some time the software defined wide area networks as well as virtualization aspect, cloud always has been there, and putting all of them together and adding to the AI capabilities is something which will continue moving forward, and that's their expectation. And they are coming very clearly asking for sort of a expectation beyond the offerings, how they will be consuming it. We touched upon that point earlier, so I sort of that digital mode is very, very critical for them. Another critical aspect is that the change is that the CIOs from the buyer perspective, they are gaining a lot of control over the budget and decision making perspective. That is something which I can see it. I can share on that they are not only the L1 which counts. They're more in terms of the T1 also counts and matters more. And that's a expectation perspective. They are making it very, very clear and sort of is we need to understand, and we are able to deliver sort of a hybrid model, which is again very critical for them, knowing that after COVID, we have gone long way ahead now. But what shifts happen, that can happen again and again many times. We have to be ready. So that hybrid model is very critical and sort of working well, including the private network with the public cloud and sort of telco managed edge, and also sort of work from anywhere connectivity options, and making sure that cybersecurity is taken care of all and every aspect of whatever services provided. In terms of the challenges, there are challenges certainly, and that comes from the fact of that when we are scaling up, and when we are in one country, there's a service which has been orchestrated, which is easy. That's good. There's an ecosystem. When we are scaling to multiple countries, that in itself requires an additional ecosystem to be expanded to, and not necessarily all the partners will be able to use the same orchestration models, the consistency of SLAs, in terms of the speed of delivery which they can honor, the revenue models, in terms of the regulation which plays a key role as well. Because one prominent example is the China. The way whatever you build when you're scaling up may work in some countries, may not work in many, and there are many other countries as well, by the way, where we have to really see that how we can scale up seamlessly for customers. That's the key challenge. Bundling the services in a simple manner, which can be consumed in an easy way. One, for easy to understand from the customer's perspective, as well as the pricing models, which needs to be more aligned with sort of, which customer can understand from the site-wise, the device-wise, the application-wise, and which they can understand, which can integrate with their environment to sort of, control the cost, scale up, scale down, and all those aspects are again very critical. And these are some of the challenges that are on top of my mind. I would, say that are relevant for the customer. There might be many others as well, but those will be sort of, minor points, I would say. That's a big challenge. Regulatory is a big challenge, certainly.
Salil, I'm tempted to ask you something which is beyond probably the mandate of this panel and the technology and the service and the usual things which we have been discussing, or even the previous panel also discussed. So when I spoke at the beginning in my opening remarks about capturing value, and I said just connectivity where there's a limit to capture value by selling more people, more users, more customers, more connectivity, more locations and all that. But value, and if I look at from the operating management perspective, value can, KPIs are possibly, top line, operating margins, stickiness of customers, repeat customers, those kind of things. But if I have the lens of the promoter, founder, essentially the capital markets, investors, and value, they would define value more in terms of, how is the market valuing. So I'm tempted because Jio is expected to come with IPO this year. And this has been already announced, so it's public news by the chairman of the group. So I am tempted to ask is that the valuation which Bloomberg and others are reporting are far higher than a normal telecom business, because there are comparables. There are two other direct competitors already listed, but the value Jio is expecting is much higher at, its public domain news, $170 billion or so. To me, it appears it's not a telco business that at all Jio is looking at. It looks like a TechCo or digital service provider. So any comments, with nothing confidential to be shared, of course, but anything you want to say?
As I told that since beginning the belief is that we are not a telco, or we will never be a telco. We hate ourselves being called a telco. The business model is based on creating digital services delivery to the users. It could be individual users, it could be enterprise. And now with the capability of a 5G network and the investment which are going into the AI, I think the possibility of completely revamping the market economics, India's journey towards 5 trillion, with these powers in hand and available to be used now, gives a tremendous upside to any company who can leverage the 5G, the AI capability and the telco capability and work with the ecosystem partners, because every company in this country is up for a business transformation, right? The upside is going to come from business transformation, giving you more revenue, less cost, more efficiency, better experience. Instead of the companies expanding, you don't have banks adding thousands of bank branches every year, although they add branches, but it is not expanding at the scale which can give growth to a telco or a techco. Similarly, the utilization, the bandwidth is not increasing at that rate which can sustain that growth. So the growth has to come from creating more value. And in India, since if you leave the top tier of organizations, the business model that they follow internally is very legacy driven, right? The innovation has not yet seeped into the mid-tier and the low rung of companies. So I see a lot of upside, and maybe that's what will be proven in the time to come.
And I think we're saying the same thing, that the growth is limited by just adding more. So banks are not adding more branches to that scale. So you can't grow up like that. Okay, we probably will take one or two questions or points from the delegates here, if anybody has one. I have a problem here. There's a clock here, but there's a big box here, so I can't see that clock. So I've been advised we only have 2 minutes or something. 2 minutes 21 seconds. So one question, if anybody has. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm Saurabh from Orange. So, yeah, it was very good session throughout where we were discussing on the 5G infra, how we monetize, all those discussion were going on. One of the point I wanted to discuss was on the environment. There are most of the companies, international, multinational companies, they are working toward carbon footprint. And they are also taking that as a parallel step to save our environment, going to the eco-friendly data center setups where their power consumption are less and they can contribute while we are progressing or moving from 5G to different platforms or to maybe more, bandwidth, 5G, 6G and all those things. So is there any plan or is that a part of Viksit Bharat also in terms of development?
Yeah, I think, if you look at any telco or a techco in that sense, there is a tremendous focus on how do you become carbon neutral or how do you gain carbon points. You said about, with the 5G, 6G and the AI coming into India. With that, the power consumption is not going to go down, it is going to explode. The biggest question in front of every country, especially for India, is that if the projections which are coming behind AI boom are true, the amount of data center capacity that is needed in India is huge, and those data centers are power guzzlers. They need huge amount of power to run. So that's why along with the data center boom, there is continuously a parallel track that how do we use green energy as far as we can. You definitely need more energy, that's a no-brainer, but instead of conventional energy sources, can you use more green energy sources, or you can then do other environmental friendly steps. So that's a agenda of every company, every large company that I know of, including Jio and Reliance.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think it's a valid question, and Orange Business Solution itself is one of the prominent, participant in the industry. I'm sure you're taking care. But yeah, the other things happening, if I may add, is in the US context, this is a big concern that the power consumption and the requirement will be very high. So recently we have seen, Meta tying up 3 nuclear service providers, wherein the supply will come in 2029 and 2035. But they're investing, putting money in creating nuclear powers which are more friendly than carbon generating ones. So those things are there, but definitely power, water consumption, these are big constraints in the growth because the data requirements are high. The data centers are kind of getting built very rapidly, but power will be a challenge at some point of time. It's not an easy one to solve. Fortunately, Jio, in terms of its group, Reliance, they are taken a big bet on the green energy also, which should be sufficient. But not all groups are also present in power and telecom and technology and AI. So those equations, all the parts of the puzzle are not clear. So valid question, and thank you for that. Any other question? Then let me just wrap up by one
comment I wanted to add onto the same point. That in terms of choosing the partners and working with the partners, I think the focus is huge these days, what I observe. The companies, they are putting specifically in their RFPs as well as deciding whether to give or work with that partner or that company. There's a specific carbon footprint point mentioned that must be qualified. Only then that successful partnerships is being enforced. So that is something which is happening, I can see across globally. That's something which is I just thought that's an important point. Internally within India as well, while we are dealing, I think that's something we'll be picking up. That's something which I assume.
Thank you. On that note, I think we have run out of time and we will conclude the panel. And thank you very much, Salil, Sukhjit and Rakhee, for your valuable insights.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can I just request everyone to be on stage and invite Shubhendu Parth, Editor, Voice and Data, to present our token of appreciation to all the panelists and the moderator as well. Hello. Can we all have a quick group photograph, please? Thank you so much. Moving on to our